Welcome to simulated Detroit Metro. Just checking the departure boards. It looks like our flight is ready to go. We're on our way to Chicago O'Hare. Here's D6. Our gate today is D4. Hey, look at that. There's a new 737 sitting there. And that 737 is the Model 800 from PMDG. Okay, yeah, the jetway doesn't look quite right there, but you know what? That's okay. This is a great freeware airport that I got at flightsim.to. And hello, I'm Dave. I do the Spy Flight over on Twitch. And you know what? We got another really great airplane from PMDG. This is the 737-800. And I think, you know, based on the chat from the Spy Flight, this is the 737 that a lot of people have been really, really excited about. I think one of the reasons is I think the 737-800 is probably the airplane that most people are really interested in. Is the one that the airlines fly the most. That was what I was trying to say. Good morning to you. It is early in the morning here at Spy HQ. Wanted to go and get this video underway because there's a lot of curiosity about the airplane, how I got it set up, how I'm making it work smoothly, and let's go ahead and see what's going to happen. So today we're doing Detroit to Chicago. This is based off a real-world flight, although United does fly an A319. This is going to be a full flight and a first look at the PMDG 737-800. The add-ons that I'm using for the flight, SimBrief and SimToolkit Pro. I also use the SimBrief downloader to get flight plans and also the weather information in. We're also doing Navigraph charts, and I'm using the Freeware Airport for Detroit and a Payware Airport for Chicago O'Hare. This is, as I said, a real-world route. We're using current weather. We're also using real-world active runways. I'm going to show you where it is that I get that sort of information. Here's flight plan today. Detroit, Chicago, departing runway 22 left, which is what real-world Detroit is using for departures. Kalen 2 departure. This is basically a SID to STAR flight. As after we depart on Kalen 2, we go into Windy 2 for the arrival onto Chicago O'Hare's runway 27 left. Cruise altitude today, 30,000 feet. This is about an hour and 20-minute flight, only 298 miles. And I think that this is really one of the best distances for getting good and practicing these kinds of airplanes. A little bit later on when we get to cruise, we'll take a look at the differences between this and PMDG's first airplane that came out. But right now, I think it's time to start heading down the jetway. Now, some of the jetways that they've made are really looking pretty good for walking through. Unfortunately, this is not one of them. So we'll just go ahead and be outside. Yeah, this jetway's a little bit, little dodgy at the moment, but you know, jetways are getting so much better. And here's our airplane, and we can kind of come down over here. Okay, so we get a little closer here. We're going to come on in and slowly make our way. And this part looks actually pretty good. And walk on in. They did a pretty good job. You know, this airplane looks nice. Some of the textures back here are a little bit flat and all compared to some other airplanes. Got to say, though, it does help save you frame rates and resources. This is pretty close to a standard configuration in the cabin. We got 3 rows of first class, and then it looks like we've got about half economy plus and then economy. So come on over here. PMDG still doesn't model opening cockpit doors yet, so you just kind of have to walk through the door there. So there we go. And you see as I walk through, the pilots are there. So depending upon, you know, your view, the pilots are there. We're still in drone camera view at the moment. So that's kind of what's going on there. But let's go ahead and we're going to get out of drone view. And let's see if I can go and get out of the drone cam. There we go. And let's go ahead and get ready and start doing some airplane stuff. My cold and dark setup for this airplane is pretty much I have a ground power unit plugged in. I also have gone and got my door open. So whether or not we're going to use stairs or a jetway, the main passenger door is ready to go. So that's cold and dark. A hard part about the PMDGs right now is when you set up your cold and dark stuff, one of the things that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go and empty out the airplane. Let me show you what I mean. So we haven't even turned power on the airplane. And to set up some things and to turn on jetways and stuff, you can just hold the menu button down here on this FMC. And when you hold that menu button down for about 4 or 5 seconds, it then pops up so you can go and set some things. So this is page 1 of airplane services. Page 2 is fuel. Notice that my fuel right now is 0. I've been trying to set my fuel at 5,000 pounds and it keeps resetting me over there. So I like to leave a little bit of fuel in the tanks overnight, but there you go. Passengers, I had to go and reset this. When you get a PMDG airplane, it comes to you with a ton of fuel, fully loaded with passengers, and also fully loaded with cargo. So you've got to go in and unload all of that stuff. Once you've gone and unloaded that stuff and you've got the airplane cold and dark the way you want it, so all of my switches are, well, look at this. This switch is supposed to be, so I thought I had set this earlier, but it isn't. I thought I'd set that to off. So I've got a few more things that I've got to try and reset here. Once you go and do that, one of the things to do is return and go to the menu and go to PMDG Setup. And so here we are at the setup, and you've got several things that you can do. You can load a certain state, and so those are those states there, and there's a whole bunch that you can choose from. Or once you have the airplane the way you like it, so let's go ahead, and I want to do one more thing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in, I like to leave about 4,000 pounds of fuel in there. And see, it's got it in there over there, but it didn't have it in there over here. So this is a little bit of a confusing thing to me. So it didn't have fuel in this one. So I don't understand why that's that. Anyway, I just did a little sidebar there that was ridiculous. So PMDG setup. Go in, and once you have the airplane the way you like it, hit State Save. And then it's going to want you to put in a file name. I call mine SPY. That's my cold and dark on this. And put it in there. It says spy name, and then execute it. Okay, and that's how you save your panel state. So for your airplane, go in there, zero out your cargo, zero out your passengers, set the airplane the way you like it. So I like it with a lot of my switches off. And then once you get all of that done, you should have the airplane good to go for loading up. So successfully saved to spy. Return to setup. Now, you can also go in and do a whole lot of different options. Over on the spy flight, when we got this yesterday, a lot of people said the first thing that they did is they went and turned on the eyebrow windows. So that was like the first thing that everyone wanted to do. As far as liveries, this thing shipped with a ton of liveries for real world. The livery that I'm waiting for is, of course, this is the airplane that United flies around with the Star Wars livery. So I can be a little bit geeky about that every now and then. Let's see, Joe D just took off. I saw Joe D while we were waiting, while I was getting set up here, was over at D11. So that we're just on multiplayer right now. But later on today on the spy flight, we're going to take this, put it through its paces on VATSIM for some, and I believe it really, over on VATSIM yesterday, the number of 800s that we're flying was just a huge number, so everybody's really been excited about this airplane. Let's do a few other quick things about how I set this up. One of the things that you can do, and links are going to be in the description below, so they're all there for you. This is called D-ATIS. This is great for big airports around the U.S., and I've got the current departure ATIS for Detroit Metro. Just go ahead and hit refresh, and this tells you that they're departing on 21 right and 22 left. This gives you the latest METAR. I can also go in here and we'll get the Chicago O'Hare data too. As far as figuring out what gates to go to and things like that, this is United's real world United Flight 1062. They're going to be departing from Gate Delta 12, the one that we're at, and they'll be arriving at Charlie 28. If you're going to be in a VATSIM event, this is a great way to figure out what gates to depart from and arrive from. So that's a really cool thing to do. It'll also show you the route of the real world airplane. Now, this one isn't expected to depart until later on today. Right now, the airplanes that are going into Chicago from Detroit are commuter airplanes. I think it's E-175s. So those are two resources that I use to get ready to go. I've already done my flight planning through SimBrief and SimToolkit Pro. So those are good to go. Let's go and minimize that. Here is my SimBrief, SimToolkit Pro. It's all the data you see at the top of the screen there. And here is our route of flight. There's the airplane. All of this is ready. And usually at this point, once I get the flight planning done, I'll just take this, put it on the other monitor, and I will go and just minimize it. Some other things that I've gone and pre-set up, this is what I call the stack of charts. So using Navigraph, I've already gone through the flight plan and got the airport chart. So here's our airport chart. I've even got the parking chart for today. So there's D4. D4, yes, that's our gate. There is our departure. I've already got the arrival. Real world Chicago, I've checked to see. 27 left is one of the arrival runways. And of course, I've got charts to get into Chicago. The real world pilots, they're going to use something like this similar, and they're going to go and stack up their charts. The only difference is they might also, right now, Chicago is landing on 27 left, 27 center, and 28 center. Maybe one of the things that they would do is they would also, instead of just having one runway, they would have all of the runways that Chicago is currently landing on. So they're in that stack of charts too. So if Chicago says go over to 28 center, the chart is already right there, and it's very easy for them to drop back and punt if that's what they have to do. Okay, so all of that is good to go. I do have the flight plan over here, and the flight plan has been downloaded. I have it as a PDF on my desktop, so I can get to this and look at flight plan numbers should I need to see those. The last thing that we're going to do here is let's go ahead and we're going to go and use the SimBrief downloader. And so here is the famous SimBrief downloader. I've already gone, and you can see PMDG flight plans and wind uplinks. You can see I have 3 download directories set for each one. That's for the 737, 700, 600, and now the 800. I know I've got a whole lot of 737s here, probably a few too many, but they're fun airplanes, so there you go. And so I've got all of these pre-set up, and if we can go and stretch this out a little bit, so we'll stretch it out way wide so that we can see the directory there. It's users, admin, app data, local packages, Microsoft Flight Simulator. All of this, I'll try and get this into the description for you. But it's in 737 work and flight plans and work and weather. So all of that information should be in there and in the description, so you'll be able to go. In fact, I'm just going to go and grab the 800, and I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to make sure that that big file path is in the description for you. In fact, by the time you see it, it will be in the description. So, wow, isn't that great? And of course, the last thing that you want to go and do is hit export. And it just exported them all, put them in the right directories, and we are now good to go. It's time to go and start doing airplane stuff. There is a video. A link is going to be in the description below for doing cabin views. So right now, of course, we've got the main views. And as you know, PMDG pretty much limits your cockpit movements to the cockpit. Well, that makes it kind of hard to get very, very nice, quick wing views and stuff like that. So there's a link to a video, a YouTube video in the description that shows you how it is that I go about, and it's not my video, it's somebody else's, but this is how I'm able to go and get a view of the door here. We're able to go and get a nice wing view on the left and a nice wing view on the right. This is just something that flight simmers are going to want, so this is a way to go ahead and do that until the developers get to the point where they're ready to go. And, would you please, It's a flight sim airplane. We want cabin views. I know it sounds silly to some, but there you go. And now we're all pretty much done. Come on back down here, FS actions, and let's go ahead and do the flight. So ground services, as you see, I've already got a jetway in place. Next thing that we're going to do is fuel. Fuel for today's flight, this is the main gate fuel, and this is going to be off the flight plan here. Another word for gate fuel is block fuel. And our block fuel today is 15,223 pounds. So let's put in 15,223 pounds. Okay, let's put it in the target, and let's request a fuel truck. And the fuel truck should be arriving. And we can go outside and kind of look around, and we'll wait for the fuel truck. There it is. Now then, there is another new thing in the world of flight sim, and you probably noticed I'm not using it for this flight. I don't have the workflow really well set up for GSX right now, but I really want to learn, especially the fuel, because one of the things that they tell us that GSX does is when it's time to fuel up the airplane, GSX also will go out onto the internets, and let's say, so we bought 15,223 pounds of fuel. It tells you how much that fuel would have cost based on the current price of jet fuel. And I don't know, that's a little trivial thing that I've been kind of interested in. I still haven't figured out how to make that work, but that's on my long list of things to figure out about, how this stuff works. So there's our fuel truck. It's already plugged into the ground and plugged into the airplane. So go back into the cockpit and we can start fueling. And so we should start seeing gas start to flow in there. I said we should start seeing gas flow in there. We don't seem to have much gas in the tank. This looks like a problem. There's fuel not going in. Okay, maybe it's because I haven't turned power on the airplane. Maybe we need to do that. So you know how to turn on a 737. The on switch is right here. It's the battery button. Battery switch, so on and guarded. Let's look down here, and we're going to turn on ground power because we're plugged into the ground, and we're going to turn on the steady lights, the position steady lights, and so that's going to be on there too. Excuse me, still battling some bad allergies here. So we're all plugged in. We've got fuel. Are we juicing the? Is juice coming into the airplane? Let's go to menu, FS actions, ground services, and next page. Hey, look at that. Gas is starting to flow. So I guess we had to have power on the airplane. So we went and did that. Now, one of the things, like all new airplanes, if you've got Navigraph data, the airplane is going to arrive in your download box with outdated nav data. Usually it takes Navigraph and PMDG 2, maybe 3 days after the release of an airplane to have that all set up for you. Basically, there isn't too many differences at the moment, but the flight management computer is still going to yell at you a little bit about, hey, you don't have your, the right data. I assume that they're going to have that fixed soon. There is a workaround where basically you go into your 737 700 or 600 and grab the nav data out of that and put it into this airplane. I haven't got that set up yet, so that's just something I haven't gotten around to. Okay, so we're going to come on up here, and we're going to come up here, and we're going to do the nav system. So what I do here is nav and nav. You can also turn this over to heading and status. So heading and status, and then we'll also turn up the brightness on the IR display, and we should start to see numbers appear here, and then it should start counting down. But at least we've got the alignment process started here. So we'll come on down here, and there is our out-of-date nav data. So again, we'll get in 2 or 3 days, so that should be all taken care of. Let's go down here and hit position init. You could go in and put in KDTW. So there's Detroit. We're at gate D4. Let's see if it knows that we're at if it knows what gate D4 is. Sometimes it does, most of the time it doesn't. Most of the times it doesn't. Okay, so let's clear out that D4, and you can see that there is the latitude and longitude for the airport. Now click next page, and you see we have GPS, which is pretty close. Let's put the top one into the scratch pad. So that's 42.13.4, 42, 12.7. This is our gate. So this is the center of the airport, and this is where we're at. So just go and grab that and put that in there, and that helps the airplane learn where it is. Route. So because we use the downloader, all we've got to do is put in KDTW, which is already in there if you put it into the initialization page for where, you know, the INS initialization page. So put that into Origin and request a flight plan. And if you did the downloader, there's your flight plan. So we're going to select it, and that's all you got to do. We've requested it, and it's coming on in. We've also gone and we've got some fuel here. So gas is appearing in the airplane. Almost to 15,000 pounds. So we've requested the flight plan, and the route uplink is ready. And with that, we can go and load it in. And so it's going to load in our flight plan for us. So that's pretty good. 13,000 pounds, and our airplane's really starting to come to life here. The master caution goes off when somebody sneezes on this airplane. So, you know, you're always kind of turning that off. Route data uplink. So we're going to clear this. I'm going to put in our flight number today. And there's our flight number. And as far as company route and runway, we're just going to leave those blank at the moment. Activate and execute. Now we can go in here, and there's 2 pages, and smooth is about the only waypoint, again, because this is such a short flight. So that's looking good. Let's go to legs, and all we have is smooth. So all of this is coming together really nicely at the moment. We're at 15,196, and now you can see that the start has not turned green anymore. We have our fuel aboard, so we're going to release the fuel truck, and now let's go to page 3. How many passengers do we have today? Over on the flight plan, that's usually page 3 on the Lido charts. 159 brave souls flying with us today. So SimBrief says you can have up to 189 passengers. This airplane is configured for 160. So you'll need to go into your SimBrief profile for the airplane and limit the number of passengers to 160. Actually, a standard configuration for this airplane is 166, I believe. So we're missing 6 seats somewhere. Okay, so it's 159. So 159 passengers. Let's go ahead and pop those over there. Next page, we've got cargo. So cargo is 9.1. I have not had enough coffee yet to do math, so calculator. 9.1 divided by 2 equals 4.55. So 4.55, we're going to put up front 4.55. Now there may be you want to load more in the front and less in the back. I don't know if there's a weight and balance thing. This is the way that I've been doing it for a while, and the airplane seems to be flying. But it could be that there is a lot more to loading this airplane than just taking the total cargo, dividing it by 2, and plugging it in. So we got our cargo, and now what I've gone and done is we're going to go and get all of our stuff, all of the baggage stuff here. And this is just what comes with the airplane. So this is not dependent on on GSX or anything like that. And here comes our first truck. Now in GSX, there's actually a guy that's driving the truck for you. But we've got that first one showing up there, and there's the ramp. And then here's the other one. So all of this is good. Now then, in the United States, I believe that there's a new rule or something that says you've got to have air conditioning plugged in or the APU running to ventilate the airplane. So let's go ahead and do the left aft fuel pump and start the APU. And that's because of COVID ventilation and stuff like that. Coming over here, we're going to turn on the window heaters. I usually get those going. My electric pumps were already on. We also should have recirculating fans on. So we're going to get those going almost immediately. The EGT, exhaust gas temperatures, going up on the APU. So our little jet engine in the back of the airplane is firing up. The sounds on this airplane are absolutely freaking outstanding. Whoever was the sound engineer on this airplane just did a phenomenal job. Okay, so we have an APU up and running. So with the APU up and running, we should have an APU. There comes pneumatics. So there's air rushing through the tubes. Let's also go ahead and we're going to get some packs going on to make the airplane comfy for the passengers. Our final cruise altitude, usually when I'm up here getting the APU on, our final cruise altitude is flight level 300. So 30,000 feet, this is when I'm going to go ahead and dial in my 30,000 feet. And then I'm also going to look over at my charts, and we're going to look at Chicago and the main Chicago chart and look up here. Chicago is 680 feet above sea level. So our landing altitude is 600. There's 600. So we can do 650 or 700. I think we're supposed to round to the nearest whatever. So I'm going to make it 700 for our flight into Chicago. And all this is looking good. We have ventilation in the airplane. Let's start loading bags. And here comes the bags. Let's start loading passengers. And there they go. Again, there is a way to do this and have it integrate with GSX. I don't know what I'm doing with that yet. There's also, they're going to be working, GSX and PMDG, I think are doing some sort of coordination so that loading the airplane will play, they'll play nicely with each other. We'll just have to wait and see. So more new things coming. And of course the master caution, somebody must have sneezed. Okay, 10 passengers are aboard. We already know by looking at the ADIS that they are departing off of runway 22 left. Yeah, 22 left. So let's go ahead and do our departure and arrival. So 22 left is our departure. We are departing off the Kalen to departure and via smooth. And so there's our departure. Execute that. Back to the index page. We know from the ADIS what runways they're going to be landing on in Chicago. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go and get our arrival runway, which is 27 left. So there is 27 right, center, 27 center. Ooh, we have a problem here. Is there not an ILS 27? 27 right. I wanted 27 left. Let's get 27 center. So there's something different there. So we just switched over to the center runway. Probably because I think they've been doing work on the left side. Maybe that's it. Now let's get the windy arrival. So windy 2. And let's see, this is going to be via smooth. And it's also, let's just go ahead and plug in the Vogler transition right now. I don't think we're going to go all the way as far out as Vogler, but that's good too. Now go to our legs. So there's the departure. Now the real pilots, they're going to compare all of this with their paper printouts. Okay, after BAM, it's Vogler. Ernie Tubes Vulcan. All right, here is a problem that you're going to run into on this approach. So here's the windy 2. Chicago is currently landing. Oh, you know what? We got to change this ILS here. So get rid of 27 left. We need the 27 center. So this one doesn't know about that. It could be that's because of outdated nav data. So let's go get 27 center for our ILS. There we go. Okay, now we're all good to go. So coming in here, there's Vogler all the way out there, and so Chicago is landing to the west. So according to the star, if you're landing rest, you're going to be expecting radar vectors after Pappy. But it already loaded in Tubes, Vulcan, Kirk, and Bambi. So we got to get rid of those because these things are going to get in the way. So let's see. After Pappy, let's see if we can start deleting stuff. Probably not. Will it let me delete Tubes? Oh, it did. Now then, after this, let's go ahead and let's get something like Boo from the Arrival. So forward. Okay, Bo, I'm going to make that one in the scratch pad. And let's put this up here. And execute. There's more realistic flight plan based on what it is that we're going to be doing today. So we got rid of that. That's one of those things that doesn't seem to get that transition right now. So now this should take us basically right on into the runway. Perfect. So that looks good. All of this is will go to performance initialization. And as passengers continue to board the airplane, we're going to 30,000 feet. So flight level 300. There we go. Now cruise winds. I get these off the flight plan here, and another word for that is average winds. And see the average winds here for our flight are 265 at 22. So 265 at 22 knots. There we go. Reserves. For me, I go down here and I get final reserve and alternate fuel. So that's my reserve, and that's what I get, and I'll put that in as 7.4. So reserves, 7.4. Our cost index, United basically flies the 737s at a cost index of 35 for a flight of 3 or less than 3 or 4 hours, one of those two. So our cost index is good to go there. I'm going to leave the zero fuel weight blank for the moment. And we have 80 passengers aboard. We've also got cargo slowly loading up too, so that's good news. And everything's coming to life back here. We can go and start doing the flight control system. And from there, the first thing that we want is our departure heading. And we're taking off on 22 left. I get this information off the charts. So that's going to be a heading of 216 degrees. So let's go ahead and come over here and do 216 degrees. Oh, always manage to overspin. And I need to turn off my mouse wheel for the zoom. That's becoming annoying. It's been annoying. So 216 degrees. Now then, if you're on VATSIM, here's the thing about VATSIM. On an approach, on a departure, your departure clearance, they expect that you're going to know what your top altitude is. And if you look here, now not all SIDs have a top altitude. But if it does, VATSIM, and as is in the real world, they expect you to know that your top altitude is 17,000 feet. So we are cleared to 17,000 feet. And if you're going to be participating in the VATSIM events, cross the land and cross the pond coming up, they're really going to be expecting that sort of thing. So that's a thing to definitely be ready for. Okay, so that's just it. I'm just resuming that one map chart out again. Passengers are still loading, so for charts, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and get the ground chart. We're over here in the north terminal area. We're going to 22 left. And so what I'm going to do is turn on flight tracking here. And there's our airplane, the little pink triangle. So we'll come out, we'll push back, we'll do Kila to Yankee 10 and take off. So I'm going to already kind of plan the route. Now on VATSIM, they may have you go on a different route, but it's a good idea to know kind of the way that you're going to have to go. It makes getting your taxi clearance written down a little bit easier. Hey, look at this, all the baggage is loaded. So we're going to release, 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 and release. And so that's going to go there. Let's see, passengers, 127 of 159 packs are aboard. So all of our PMDG baggage loading things are going away. They've already closed the luggage hatches too. So all of that's looking good too. And things are slowly we're getting a little closer to pushback here. So we're just waiting for, less than 20 passengers. And of course, they're coming pretty slow. The altimeter setting, as we get closer to departure, I'm going to go over here to my digital ATIS, and I'm just going to hit refresh. Okay, so we have departure. This is our current departure, and it is information Romeo. In my flight notes, my last information was Quebec. So I'm just going to paste this in here. By the way, my flight notes that you see here, these flight notes here are pasted into the description for you. Still departing runway 22 left. So our departure runway is still good. Let's go ahead and set the altimeter, which is 3007. Right on. So 3007, a perfect number for a spy flight. 3007, I have all of my barometer altimeters tied together. That's some people might say, oh, that's not realistic. I'm one person in a two-person cockpit, and on a big VATSIM event, that is a sacrifice that I will make, and risk the wrath of the gods of immersion on that. So, okay, all of this is looking good. How's the passengers? 155, 4 more passengers to go. So our preparations are coming together really nicely. We do have the APU up and running. I'm going to go ahead, and this is a good time. Let's go ahead and do APU generators. APU generators, we're going to disconnect from ground power. So ground power is now disconnected. I'm also going to do a quick up and down here. We'll do some yaw dampers, because we don't want anybody yawning today. Let's see, the APU generator, this is looking good too. So we're monitoring our voltages. We've got window heaters on. We don't have the pitot tube heaters on. We'll turn those on later. We've got pneumatics. We've set everything here. All of this is looking good. And 159. Passengers are now aboard. So last steps here, 0 fuel weight, just click the button. And it says 132.4. If we look over here at the flight plan, it said 128.8. So we probably got some extra passengers jammed in there. So that's why I'll always just click that one. And that's sort of like my load sheet. Okay, so that looks good. Let's go to the N1 limits. I'm just right now doing the number 1 derate and number 1 climb. I'm sure that there's a science to learning these things. I just have to learn that. But that's how I'm doing the takeoff now. This airplane is longer. So apparently you don't want to do a flaps 1 takeoff. It's flaps 5 or more, because that is going to be a problem for you. No descent path after bow, so it's going to constantly yell at you about those sorts of things. Center of gravity, just click it. And based on your current center of gravity, that's going to give you that. And it's also going to give you a trim setting. Click these numbers. Those are our speeds for takeoff. 149. We're going to come up here, and I'm going to dial in 159 for our speed off the runway. 159. Now that I've done that, I'm going to remember to turn on my flight directors now. So flight directors just went on. We're ready to go down here. Passengers are aboard. I'm going to do seatbelts. Seatbelts just went on. Let's go and return. We're going to go to doors, and I'm going to go ahead and close the main door. Main door of the cabin is closing. So there's our door. It's closed. Go and return here. Go back to ground services. And I'm going to release the ground power truck now, because we've already disconnected. Sometimes in the older, in the 700 and the 600, that would also release your jetway. That seems to have changed. So when you do your ground power, you're also going to need to go ahead and release your jetway at this point. And there should be our jetway go away. Okay, there is our jetway. So that looks good. Let's come on down here, and we're going to return. We're going to do, doors are closed. Let's do pushback truck. I'm just going to go straight back. Let's see. I usually try and put in like 275 here. Sometimes that just goes and makes a change or something. Now it put 295. That's just how, I'm not sure if that's the way to do it or not. But that sometimes helps. Let's see. We could also do a L. Let's have it do a standard L, and I want it to turn the nose to the left here. So a left turn, so we'll do that. Let's call the tug. So here comes the tug. I'm also going to go ahead and arm and guard my emergency lights. I'm going to come down here and do anti-collision. I'm going to ring the attendant call button and let them know that we're going to start rolling the airplane about here. Let's look down here. I have my parking brakes off. I think this is a leftover from Airbus. Airbus, when you're chalked, you turn off the parking brakes. So I'm going to go ahead and put on parking brakes, toe brakes all the way down, and you can pull the lever. We are going to start squawking transponder because we're going to start moving around, and on VATSIM, that basically means that you're squawking mode Charlie like you're supposed to. We're on multiplayer right now, so one of the things I will do for multiplayer is I'm just going to look around and see, is there anybody behind me? No, just, it's polite. All right, let's go ahead and hit start to push.
Cockpit to ground. Go ahead. We've been cleared for push and start, tail to the right. Copy that, ready for push, tail right. Release brake, please.
Okay, to release a parking brake on a 737, you push the toe brakes in. Clicking on this is not going to help.
Brakes released.
Toe brakes go in. The pushback truck will pull your chocks for you, so that's kind of nice. Now, it doesn't happen immediately, but there goes your pushback. And we are out of the gate. My usual departure time is 35 minutes after the hour. Looks like we are about a little less than 10 minutes late today. That's okay. All right, so the push is going. We're probably cleared for ground start, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to get my fuel pumps on first and get pressure there. The last thing I'm going to do before start is then I will go and turn my packs off because it's summertime and I don't want it to get too stuffy in the cabin. Ground start. Look down here. There comes some N2. And that N2 is looking pretty good. Anywhere between 20 and 25% for fuel. So here comes fuel cutoff. And I suggest coming back here on your pushback, turn up the sound. This is a really great startup sound from PMDG. Very nice startup sounds. Okay, they want parking brakes on. We're done with the push. So, remember, toe brakes all the way down.
Brake set.
Pull the lever. And we got a good start on engine number 2. Ground start, engine 1. And...
Alright, steering pin is disconnected. Watch for the salute and release from guidance on your left. Have a good flight.
now that's the end of the start sequence for the PMDG starter. So there's no salute and release from guidance or anything like that. The tug disconnects itself and it's gone. Now, I will say that one of the really impressive things that I've seen is the GSX pushback. That's really nice. I like that one a lot. So from this point, we're done with all the pushback. Chocks are removed, brakes are on, menu, FMC, and I usually leave this one on progress. And we're getting a good start on this engine. And we get to listen to this engine start sound too. And that looks pretty good. So 2 good starts on that engine. I usually do that. I think I'm doing this a little bit opposite because I'm concerned about passenger comfort. So as soon as we're done with the start sequence, I get my packs on, especially in the summertime. Since we're clear of all the ground crew, I'm now going to turn on my probes, heat probes, and then I'm going to come down here and we're going to do generators. So now engines are generating power, and then I'm going to go and turn off the APU. And all of those are good to go. So all of this is looking good. That's how I have my panel set. Everything's looking good down here. Sorry about the big sniff. I'm still dealing with ugly allergies. Now that we're done here, I'm going to go and do engines, and we're going to do status. Now, United apparently didn't buy the really cool indicators for control surfaces here for controls. So I guess, you know, you just run your controls around like this. You can go back in here and you can check those. Speed brake check. Flaps 5. There goes flaps. Very satisfying flaps on this airplane, I have to say. Including this little thing down here. You see, it's not a full flap. It's also got this little thing down here, this little mini flap within the big flap that goes down. All right, so there's flaps. And I think we're ready to go. I'm going to go and do the nose light. Again, I'm going to do a cabin call. Let them know the airplane is about ready to start rolling. So sit back in your chair. Make sure your feet are on the rudder pedals. Toe brakes. And this airplane does need a little bit of power to get going. As we get going, start your turn. And there is our taxi line for taxiway Kila. Auto brakes to RTO. And we're on the taxi line. How about that? If you look at some of the real-world flight videos, and look out your window, this is taxi speed. This is our taxi speed, and it's about 10 knots of ground speed here. Maybe on a big longer flight or something like that, a longer taxi like, you know, at Denver or Amsterdam or something like that, or Chicago, you can go on up to 20 knots if you're doing a straightaway. But really, this is about it. Now our speed's up to about 13 knots. So I'm going to reduce this. I have a bad feeling that I'm about ready to, that I've got some dirt or something in my nose wheel controller, which is too bad. That seems to be one of the weak points to the Thrustmaster side stick, is it gets a little bit dirty down there, and that interferes with your nose wheel steering. That's about the only complaint that I've got about that. Otherwise, I've really liked, you know, my Thrustmaster stuff. And I've got the TCA Airbus Captain's Pack. I mean, and obviously I'm flying it with a Boeing 737 here, and it works really good. Okay, coming up on the runway, thrust has just gone down to idle. Still holding about 13 knots. You can hear a little bit of rattling in the taxi on this airplane now. Haven't heard that before. Still 13 knots, so maybe a little toe brake around here. So it can be a nice smooth little taxi out. And there's our runway. And holding short. All right, last little scan here. Everything looking good. Let's go ahead and do VNAV and LNAV. All of those are good. I have the auto throttle little switch there. That is remoted up to one of my throttles. Okay, so this is good. I think we're ready to go. Shall we go to Chicago? ATC is just called, cleared us out onto the runway, so we're going to change the lights from steady, and we're going to go into the up position, and that's basically showing the strobes are now flashing on the wingtips. I usually do that when I'm cleared to get on a runway. Add a little bit of power. The sounds of the air, the pneumatic air sounds on this are really amazing as you go from idle. You know, a little bit of power to get you going to idle. That just blows me away. Okay, we've done cabin calls. Everybody's seated and secured. So the last thing I'll do is let's go ahead and hit the big bar. Landing lights. Get centered up on the runway. I also have the takeoff thrust button remoted too. So throttle's going up, and I run my throttles up to about 40%. I look down and see stable, and then I hit the auto thrust button. Hands on the throttle in case we have to cut the throttle. Steering with rudder pedals.
80 knots.
Checked.
E1.
Hands off the throttles. Up, up, and away.
Positive rate of climb.
Gear. And I still have gear on a switch. So long, Detroit. See you laters. Okay, how are our flight directors? A little bit of a turn. Push the nose down a bit. Start a turn. That makes flight directors happy. Center them up. And let's get some help from the autopilot. AP is engaged. AP is engaged. Looking over here, make sure my throttle, auto throttle button, VNAV and LNAV are set up. See, I forgot, as usual, to go to Terra down there. I also forgot to go to traffic up here. Terrible pilot. And looks like, oh, we can start doing some flaps. One of the reasons that I engage the autopilot quickly like this is so that I can go and watch flaps go up. Passing 3,000 feet. Slats can go up now. Leading edge slats go. Oh, we got a little bit of wing flex out there. A couple of bounces on our way out of Detroit this morning. Don't spill your coffee. And speed's coming up. Looking good. I'm going to go here, and I always do like to keep my heading straight ahead in case we lose the autopilot. At least it reminds me of the direction I'm supposed to be going. We can go ahead and turn on airports and data. It's pretty flat out here, so I'm not going to do terrain radar, but I think the requirement for the real world pilots is to do that. We should have also by now gone and done landing gear 2 off, and this is when I'll also turn off the auto brakes. Another thing I forgot to do is apparently just before takeoff, you hit reset the fuel flow switch. So I forgot to do that. So I'm trying to remember to do all those things. And now we kind of get to sit back, passing 6,000 feet. ATC just called. We are cleared to flight level 240. So 240. Now then, what's going on? we seem to be slowing it down a bit. That's because we have a constraint here. At or below 7,000 feet at SAMS. So on the departure, as we come around, there's that at or below 7,000 feet for SAMS, and then we have to be above 9,000 feet at baseline. So again, a lot of these sorts of things here are to keep us out of the way of arriving traffic. And they have altitudes to stay out of our way too. So if you're wondering why the engine's just spooled down a little bit, that's why. So we have to stay below 7,000 feet at SAMS. But the airplane's handling it perfectly. And after SAMS, it should resume the climb. I've told this story a few times, but I've been watching a lot of the trip report videos that people do. You know, they'll be on an airplane ride, a real world ride, and they just take a camera and stick it to the window for the whole flight. And one day I was watching a 737 flight. It's actually fairly recently. A 737 flight, looking out the window and stuff, and I was just watching their video. And I said, wow, that looks like Microsoft Flight Simulator. And then it went bing, wait a minute, I'm watching real world and saying that looks like Microsoft Flight Simulator. How about that? Isn't that great? That's how good the scenery is here. And we've resumed our climb. So above it says, oh no, it's below 9,000. I thought it was at or above. No, it's at or below 9,000. So we're going to stop at 9,000 at baseline. One of the liveries that I'm looking for is the United Star Wars livery. So United has a Star Wars livery on this airplane, the 737-800. So looking forward to seeing that. I hope that the livery people, one of the things is that cabin is kind of unique. And so the cabin for that airplane is Jedi on the left and Sith on the right, and so I think there's some cabin colors in there. I know that sounds kind of silly, but hopefully somebody's creative with all that. So holding at 9,000 until baseline. This is a short flight, so when you've got a minute like this on a short one, come on over here. Let's go and do KORD. And if you can't do this, so here in the United States, we've got all of this great information. So there is the current ATIS. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste that ATIS into my notes. I'm going to verify runways are the same. Let's say we can't do this. Another thing for you to do is go to METAR TAF, link in the description, blah, blah, blah. And this is good for worldwide. So we can go over here and we can do Heathrow. And right now you can see that Heathrow is moderate VFR, 6 knots, and this is going to get you the METAR for Heathrow or any other airport around the world. So I really like having the digital ATIS in the US. I wish they'd share with the rest of the world. But this is another place that you can go. You can also basically take a look and see visually how the wind is going to affect you in comparison with your approach to the runway. So this is a really, really nice resource too. In the US though, I do like to use this one. And we don't need to track that other flight. We're not shadowing it real time right now. Oops, 10,000 feet. 10,000 feet. So landing light, landing light, landing light, landing light, nose light, and 10,000 foot cabin call. Let the cabin crew know that, hey, we're at 10,000 feet, so sterile cockpit's done. So if the cabin crew needs to talk to the flight deck, they can. The cabin crew is going to get on the PA and tell everybody, hey, seatbelt sign's still on. Because it's also a short flight, let's go down here to the radios. So right now we are planning for runway 27 center. runway 27 center, the ILS is 111.9. So let's go and do 111.9. There we go. And I'm going to make that active. Chicago also has a VOR. And I don't see it there. Do we have the VOR listed here? No. I thought we had a VOR here. How come it's not showing up here? There's Chicago. So maybe they don't. Thought they had one. Let's just look and see. Let's do another look around here. So go grab another chart. Let's look at, does this one show anything? Yes, there is one. So there is a small little VOR here. It's 108.25. So let's go to 108.25. That just gives us another DME, another distance to the airport down here at VOR 2. A lot of bigger airports do have sort of like the main VOR. I like to go and grab one of those and pop those in. Oops, we're heading 312. We've made a turn, and I did not update my course heading. Got a call from ATC, climb and maintain flight level 300. So flight level 300, which is our final cruising altitude. And let's dial 312 in here. 312. Okay. So out we go. Everything's looking good here. Oh, you could also change your electric monitoring. So we'll go to generator 1. And that's going to give us DC volts and AC amps and volts. You could also, APU's off. And there is the generator 2. So you can monitor your electrical output. Make sure it's happy electrical day. I'm sure you'll get a charge out of that. And there's your bad joke for the flight. And of course, there are more coming. Looking down here, everything's looking good. Let's see, 18,000 feet. Let's hit the standard button for standard altimeter. And then usually if it's smooth, I'm going to go and do a quick cabin call. That lets the cabin crew know that they're safe to get up from their seats and start getting ready to do cabin services. So they'll go and start getting the galley carts ready to go. So get ready for coffee. And if you're flying United with me, get ready for a stroopwafel. Yes, I'm that big of an airplane geek. I've ordered stroopwafels. You can get them at Amazon. And so you can have those. It makes for kind of a nice snack. And yes, it actually fits on a mug, so you can set it on there and it will warm up your stroopwafel. Everything's looking good here. Nothing really to worry about down there. We're already set up for our approach. Mostly. We still have some stuff to do, but I at least got the frequencies taken care of. Passing 20,000 feet. Oops, we turned again. We're now heading 278 degrees. So let's put 278 here in the heading. I'm experimenting with some slightly different cabin view, control views here, trying to find something a little bit better. So this is a nice view here. I think that the this one's a little bit awkward. This one's a little bit awkward. So I'm still working on fine-tuning those for the airplane. I do definitely suggest that if you're using quick views and your number pad, try and have them the same for all of your airplanes. So number pad 0 for me is always 0. This main cockpit view. Number 5 is always the upper panel. Number 1 is always sort of the flight, the autopilot. So I try and have those views set up so that no matter if I'm Airbusing, Boeing, MD-11ing, whatever, those camera views always are the same. It really helps eliminate confusion. Makes your life a lot nicer. Looks like we're going to hit top of climb just fine. There's 22,000 feet. And everything's looking good there. Fuel, 10.5. Remember from our flight plan, reserves for our flight today were supposed to be 7.4. I boarded an extra 45 minutes of fuel. That's just something that I'm doing. If it was, you know, a shorter flight or something, maybe I'd only board an extra 30 minutes of fuel. If it's a VATSIM flight, I board an extra hour of fuel. You know, because if you're going to be caught in, you know, waiting for clearance, delivery, waiting for taxi and push, you know, clearances and stuff like that, when you get dropped into that, you know, pit of testing your patience hell, you see your fuel start disappearing. So that's why I board extra fuel. I think that when it comes to this airplane, I'm only barely touching the surface of all the stuff that is modeled in this airplane, and things to do, like this does download weather, and you know, upper level winds and stuff. I've totally been blowing that off, but that's something you can do. And just looking outside the window, if you're passing 25,000 feet on a flight from Detroit to Chicago, this is probably a really close. This is probably what it looks like outside seat 10A. So if you're an airplane geek, this is a time to just look out the window. This is a great way to, I'll bring breakfast over sometimes. 25,000, and unless there's turbulence or something, this is usually about the time that I'm going to go ahead and switch my seatbelts from on to auto. I have, permanent traumatic injury based on the fact that one day when I was at Denver Airport, I went through the Starbucks line, and instead of getting a grande, I got a venti, and it was a bumpy flight. The seatbelt didn't go off for a very long time, and I will leave you to imagine the discomfort. So I try to be as nice about the seatbelt sign as I can, and by the way, I never ordered a venti again. So there you go. You can see top of descent is going to be really quick after our top of climb. So another thing for us to do is let's start setting up a few more things here. So up here on the arrival chart, that's how fast this flight is going to be. Normally, I usually hit pause for cruise and go make breakfast. Nah, not going to have time for that today. So inbound course is 273 degrees. So 273 over here on the course. There's 273 degrees. Minimums for our arrival on a Category 1 landing, it's 200 feet, 853. So go over here. I'm set to radio today, so let's just do it that way because it's less cranking. So let's just put in 200 feet on the radio as opposed to the baro. Okay, there is 200. There we go. All right, minimums are set. Inbound course is set. We have got our ILS set. If we were on VATSIM right now and I knew that they were also landing on 28 center, which is what they're doing in the real world, I would also have programmed the 28 center ILS into my standby frequency here. In case they're going to shift me over, there's not a lot of time to go dig that information up. So that's just how you can go and, get that taken care of really fast. Let's also clean up some stuff. So we're going to come over here and we're going to get rid of the Detroit charts. And so all of my stack of charts is ready to go. This is looking good. There is the windy arrival. So this is going to help us. We're coming in at smooth here. Airports, we're going to be going off of 27 center. So we've got 2 high speeds and Foxtrot. Usually I'm able to get Echo 1. And then in the past, they'll bring me in for Romeo. loop me around here. Sometimes they'll bring me in over at Gulf or Hotel. For us, we are parking at Charlie 28, so also, where's your gate? Charlie 28, right over there in Concourse C. So now we got a good idea of what we're gonna do. This is sort of like briefing the arrival. So we just briefed the arrival. And that's a really good thing to do. Okay, we hit 30,000 feet here, right at top of climb. So Mach 0.76. Certainly not going at warp factor 10 today, but that's okay. Now that we're at our final cruise, let's look down here. Are we in Econ cruise mode? Top of descent, 15 miles. The last thing to do on our descent is, what's our initial descent altitude? Here at O'Hare, it's all about keeping the options open. So a lot of the approaches do not have a descent. So come on down here and we're gonna go and look. We put Bow. So at Bow, that's 6,000 feet. The final approach, what I call the final plunge altitude, your final descent to the runway, and that's 2,200. So somewhere between here and there, let's go and make our descent 4,000. Now, ATC, if they were telling us what to do, they would give us an altitude because one is not listed on the windy arrival. So we're just taking the power into our own hands, and I'm gonna go and put in 4,000. Usually ATC is going to step you down as opposed to a nice smooth VNAV descent. Mostly they're gonna step you down. That way they can keep control of altitudes and airspeed a lot better. And in a crowded VATSIM event, that's kind of what they do. So we are now 6 miles from top of descent. The altimeter in Chicago is 3,000. So what we'll do is adjust the altimeter setting and see the little white number at the bottom. So now we preset our arrival altitude. This is something you can do in the Boeing that I think is awesome. Maybe you can do that in the Airbus. I haven't figured out, but being able to preset my altitude like that, that's just one little button, and that really helps me because as a single person flying a two-person cockpit, that's a huge time saver, and I really appreciate that. Okay, 1 nautical mile to top of descent. So just watch the airplane here, and we just went to descent mode. And down we go. We have started our descent into Chicago. Somebody pick up the phone, call Lou Malnati's, the Chicago pizza place that I really like. They, by the way, deliver anywhere in the U.S. if you like a good deep dish pizza. And I am not sponsored by them, but I should be. Couple of airplanes over there. Looks like we got a 777 and an Airbus 8-200N. I think I'm messing that up. A lot of the numbers here are really starting to bypass me. Okay, so we've got a little indicator here. How are we doing on this descent? Well, if you look over here, this is our descent deviation. And as you can see, the little diamond is close to the center. That means that I am not being a deviant pilot. Although my sense of humor is probably considered somewhat deviant, at least as far as the descent is concerned, nobody can yell at us. Passing 28,000 feet. Thing about the older Boeings like the Boeings, you definitely hear that trim wheel constantly spinning around. Unlike the McDonnell Douglas, the MD-11 or the MD-80, we don't have somebody named Betty telling us about the stabilizer being in motion. Okay, looks like our descent is pretty good. We've got a descent constraint here at Bow, so that's good too. Let's go to init. Generally in the 737, I've been choosing a flaps 30 landing for a big old long runway. I don't know if that's the best thing to do, but I've usually just been going with a flaps 30 landing for me. Again, I don't know if that's a best practice kind of thing or what. Make the map a little bit bigger here so we can see our approach. We've got a little bit of a wacky turn here, so we may have to take control of our airspeed here a bit on this little plan. 25,000 feet. This is usually when I'm going to go and make the seatbelt permanently on as opposed to auto. Maybe that's me being too big of a control freak and the airplane takes care of that, but I usually go and flip that switch about that time. And leaving the east shore of Lake Michigan. Clouds are looking pretty good today. Again, since there's no speeds here, like I said, I'm probably going to want to control my own speeds going down. Heading 274. That looks pretty good here, like we're going to be able to hit this just fine. And I think we're all ready to go here. We are currently 88 miles east of Chicago. Generally, I do like to go and turn on the backlighting. I didn't do that today, so there's the main panel backlights. You see, it just makes all of the everything on the panel stand out a little bit more. I'll come down here and to panel backlighting down here. Come on up here, and I'll do the backlighting here too. See, just makes everything pop out of the gray panel a little bit better. I don't know if that's the best way to do it. I'm going to guess that it's an LED kind of a light, so it's not like we're adding a bunch of artificial heat behind there. Passing 22,000 feet. I'm trying to remember to arm the speed brakes and set auto brakes. I'm trying to do that. You know, both of those are kind of linked together up here for landing. And so because I might need speed brakes between now and the time we get on final approach, so I guess I could preset my auto brakes now, but since I kind of have those two linked together in my head, that's why I haven't set auto brakes yet. Real world pilots, I'm guessing that they preset that now or at another time. So we're right on this descent path, but like I said, I'm going to slow us down to about 210 as we're making those two 90-degree turns. Passing 20,000 feet. Really nicely modeled airplane on the outside. Nicely done airplane. Okay, the current time is 19 minutes after the hour. So as we get in a little bit closer, when I'm flying alone like this, one of the things I will do is I'm just going to go and hit refresh. Oh, look at this. I think we have a new one. So Chicago O'Hare information mic. Is that new? It is. We had Juliet. So now it's Mike. Oh, wait a minute. Yep, that's it. Information mic. Altimeter is still 3000. Winds are about the same. Did they change the runways? Arrivals, expect vectors 27 right. ILS 28 center. So they took 27 center off the chart. I'm gonna stick with my runway because I don't have data. I bet when we get the nav data updated, we'll be able to use 27 center. But right now, there was no ILS that was in the FMS here. Okay, 18,000 feet. Should have hit the standard button. So altimeter, so easy. Just click the button and it's set. I really like being able to preset those things. And we're coming in a little bit closer. Let's bring the map in a click. So we're 20 miles out from having to make these turns. I'm going to go now and I'm going to hit my vertical speed button. And now I can go and I'm going to start reducing my speed now. And I'm going to start at 210, get it down to 210 here. It's 16,000 feet. I don't see that we are reducing our speed at all. So we can come up here. We're descending at 17,000. I'm going to reduce my descent rate to get to that speed. So 500, and let's go out here and do a little bit of speed brake and see how that works. Ah, now we're slowing it down. Turning to a new heading. Match that there. 260. Again, we're going to have to make these tight turns. Now, if we were talking to VATSIM, they would be telling us to do other things. Coming in below 250 knots. We're also getting a little bit above now our descent path, but we'll be able to descend faster as soon as we get the speed down there. So leading edge slats just went out. And now flaps are 1. Actually, flaps are 2. Now I'm going to go ahead and increase my rate of descent. And we may need to kick it up a little bit more, but now that we're slower, we should be able to make those turns. In fact, here comes the little green arc. That tells us when we should be at that altitude. I'm going to do another little speed reduction when we get ready to make our turn to final to 180 knots. You can see the deviation number. So we got about 1,000 feet above what we needed to be. I've still got some speed brakes out. But this number is getting down pretty quickly. So it's 900. So we're not as deviant as we were. And then once we start to see this number get close here, I'm going to reduce my rate of descent to keep that, manually try and hold and keep that centered up there. Ah, now we're starting to get the little button there, little indicator saying when we're going to get to our perfect point in the sky. So let's go and start reducing this rate of descent. How about 1,500? We're still reducing it, but not as fast now. I've got speed brakes out, 1 click. We're at 210 knots. That's looking pretty good. And you can hear the engine spooling up, so we're going to put the speed brakes down, continuing our descent at 210. The number is still going down, so we're slowly going to get back to where we need to be. Now maybe there's a better way to manage a slowdown during a descent than that, but that's kind of the way I've been doing it. Coming up on Ernie, then Pappy, then we'll make our turn. And we're getting closer and closer. This number is still going down. So we'll be able to reduce our rate of descent even more to hit that, to hit 4,000 feet when we want to. In fact, let's go and do that now. So let's drop this down to about 12 and see what that does for us. So right now we're about 30 feet, I guess. Now we're so close that even the little number goes away. So we're in pretty good shape for our descent. The sounds outside the airplane are absolutely amazing. This is now centered. We're at 210 knots. Couldn't be better. Here comes 10,000 feet. We'll do those inner landing lights now. I don't know if you actually need to drop the ones out at the bottom of the airplane too, except at night. Maybe that's sort of like the high beams or something. Or you just turn them all on. I'm not sure exactly which is the best way to do that. So we got these lights here, but there's also some lights that pop down underneath the airplane too, to add a little bit more brightness. And there's 10,000 feet, cabin call. Sterile cockpit, flight attendants have a seat for landing. And around we go. Okay, now we're a little bit low on our descent. So I've changed it to about 900 feet per minute. The number is still going up. So let's reduce that descent to about 500 feet per minute and see what we get. I'm also going to redo my heading to remind me which way we're going in case everything goes crazy. And what's the number doing? It's not doing an awful lot here. So let's reduce our rate of descent to about 250. Okay, so we're a little low at the moment, but the number's going down, so that's not bad. So I think we're kind of catching up here a bit. Some descents, some stars are a lot, have nice altitudes going down, and you can just VNAV all the way down. This is one that they're going to descend you, increment by increment. Okay, here comes our turn to bow. So we're descending here, and we just got a phone call from ATC, and they said direct to Jimbo. So direct to Jimbo, legs. So Jumbo and execute. So now we're doing direct to Jumbo, and now all of a sudden, look at that, we're too high. So let's crank that back down again. How about 1,500? See what that does for us. So now we're like 2,000 feet too high. Here comes our green arc, and that says we're going to get there pretty close to spot on. How about that? We got lucky. ATC just called and basically said 180 knots to Driscoll. Cleared for the ILS, maintain 180. So there's 180 knots. Let's see if our speed starts slowing down a little bit. Not doing that so well. Let's go ahead and reduce our rate of descent to about 12. Not helping much. How about couple clicks of speed brake there to get us down to 180. There, now our speed's starting to drop a little bit. We could probably do flaps 5 here. There's flaps 5. Oh my gosh, clouds. So speed's coming down, good airplane. We're gonna make that 4,000 and above at Jumbo just fine. So we're getting kind of lucky. One of the things that I was gonna do, I told you we were gonna do, but we didn't have time, was take a look at this. This is the side-by-side comparison between the PMDG, between the 737-800 and, oh wait, I messed that up. Okay, let's see here. The 700 is over on one side. So, no, that should be the, okay, so let's fix this real fast. Okay, that's fixed. So the 737-700's on the right, the other one's on the left. You can see that the 800 doesn't go as far, but it does carry more. So there's a little bit of a couple of things. The source of this is aviatorjoe.net, link in the description. So definitely a longer airplane, doesn't go as far, but carries a lot more. Always helps to have the graphic correct. Okay, how we doing here? 183. We can do another notch of flaps. We are now flaps 10. 180. We're still a little bit, actually, it says we're high, but we're catching up. So hopefully we're going to catch up just fine on our descent. Let's go ahead and let this, no, we're doing good. We'll put the speed brakes away and I can do flaps 15. And I can't do it. Boy, it didn't like me at all. Didn't like that. Oh, I bet it also wants landing gear. Okay, you can quit yelling at me, airplane. Okay, what did I do wrong? What don't you like? Okay. Boy. I think I put the flaps out a little bit too fast. Or maybe it didn't like the gear. Who knows? All right, we're doing good here. Gears down. I don't think I need speed brakes anymore. So now I'm going to do arm speed brakes and auto brakes. Let's do auto brakes 3. And here's our turn to final. Let's see. Let's get a little bit of help from the approach button. And this should arm glide slope and localizer. And we are about 11 miles out from Chicago. So we can bring our map in a click. Speeds for landing again. Looks like we're talking 148 at flaps 30, so let's round it up to 150. So 180 to Driscoll, and then we can go to final descent. It got cloudy in the Chicagoland area today. Long as the pizza people could find their way to the gate, that's all that matters. So I guess we've got a little bit of weather over the Chicagoland airport. If you are flying along, now is a great time to go and make sure that you're all nice and centered up in your chair, that you can reach your rudder pedals. Last chance for a sip of coffee. Be ready to grab the throttles. So Driscoll is about 2.5 miles out. Reset that heading bug in case we have to go missed. Not so much of a problem when you're on multiplayer, but it can be a problem in VATSIM. All right, we got glide slope, we got localizer. Driscoll is very close, 1.4 miles. At this point, I'm also going to go ahead. I don't really need the chart at the moment unless we have to go missed. So I'm going to go and get this one here, and I'm going to zoom it in so that I can see the runway and the gate. I've also got flight tracking, which really helps. And there's Driscoll. We decided 150 for landing. So 150 for flaps 30. There goes that. Speed's coming down. Let's do flaps 20. Again, I'm letting the autopilot do this while we're doing the final preparations for landing. Seriously, there's so much to do. Flaps 30. Okay. Throttles are getting ready to go. So we're going to take over throttles. Hands gently on the stick. 150. Wait till the airplane kind of gets settled down on the descent. It's nice and settled down. Look down here. Last thing to do, look at the wind indicator. So the winds are ahead and to the left. It's going to want to blow us to the right side of the runway. And it actually kind of helps if you kind of go and point like that. You know, there's the wind. So that kind of helps orient you just a little bit. We're a little bit bouncy in the windy city. I think the autopilots had enough fun. This airplane, you will have to move your stick, move your yoke around a little bit when you take control. Auto throttle is still engaged. Auto throttle disengaged. Yes, I'm going in a little bit low because we're always hunting for butter.
50. 30. 20. 10.
I think we just plopped at the end there. Reversers, let's get over in the center of the runway. Okay, there's Echo 2. I generally never get that one. 60 knots. Stow the reversers. And off at Echo 1. Slow it down even more. And we'll come back around and get Romeo. Landing lights. Strobe lights. There's Romeo. Speed brakes down. I've been turning off my speed brakes way too soon. Pilots don't really start cleaning up the airplane until they're definitely ready to do that. I also did a full depress almost on my toe brakes. Otherwise, this airplane, for some reason, the auto brakes just kind of hold you to the ground there and you can't get off the runway. And then as soon as I can, I like to turn those off too. Okay, here comes Romeo. Since we are going to be at the north end of Charlie, let's look for Golf. All right, we're just on multiplayer, but we're going to be nice. Looking over to see, I don't see anybody over on 27 left. So we'll cross this one, and then Golf comes on in. See, we should stop Tara. And we'll also use this opportunity. I didn't turn on my taxi light. Oops. There's taxiway Golf. A little gray today in the Chicagoland area. So I also will use the opportunity to do flight directors about now. Okay, coming on in here, after Golf, we're going to cross 4 left, and then we're going to turn in. We'll just turn in on Alpha. So there's 4 left. Actually, we could do Alpha 2, and it's going to take us right to our gate. Let's do Alpha 2 right here. And then the parking gate chart says Charlie 28. So that's Charlie 30. Charlie 28 is the next one over. Put up the flaps. Forgot to do that. So Charlie 30, there's 28 right there. So we're going to need to make a little bit of a turn. This airplane's a little close to the ground, so it's kind of hard to see the line. There it is. And does the paint match where we're supposed to be? That says Charlie 28. How about that? One of the things that I really do like about GSX is you can go and tell them which gate you're going to, and GSX will help you get where you're supposed to be and give you gate guidance going in, which I really like. And then just kind of inch on in. Do we have a... There's 320, 321, 737. So 737 is the second bar. Add a little power, get us there. There we go. Stand on the toe brakes, pull the parking brake. We've already got the APU up, and those can go off. Let's get the generator punched over. Seat belts. Disarm the emergency exit lights. We're going to turn off anti-collision lights. Should have turned off the taxi light. We're going to turn off the first three fuel pumps. And everything over here is good for the moment. We do have pneumatics, so we're keeping the airplane cool in the summertime. Come on over here, hit the menu button, FS Actions, Services, and first thing to do is put chocks into place. So chocks. Then you can request ground power, and then you can request your jetway. So here comes our jetway. Ground power should be coming up almost instantly. And there's our gate. There's ground power card. So we can come up here and we're going to kick in the ground power. There's ground power. Now we'll come back down here. We've got a jetway in place. So return, go to doors, and open up the 1L. So that door is opening. Go back to ground services. And it says jetway passengers. So make the passenger number 0. And you can start letting the passengers off the airplane. Type a 0 in for your cargo. And a 0 for your cargo. And then you can request all the baggage loaders and they'll show up. And all of those are on hold too. And then I'll just hit the index button over here. Take a look at our fuel. Our final fuel total was 9.7. So one of the things to do is look over here. We're supposed to have 7.4. I added extra for the taxi fuel and just a little bit of extra time. So we came out ahead as far as the fuel is concerned. We'll go ahead and we'll leave the APU on so it can do the air conditioning. Everything else is clear up here. Let's see. Nope, it's not. I should have turned off probe heaters, so I should have done that too. And then we would switch the generator, the electrical monitor over to the APU. And then that's good. We can go to ground power. That looks good too. And everything is in pretty good shape. One last thing we could do is we could hit this button right here and hit space bar, and that'll level you off. And so here we are kind of outside the airplane, and we can come on in here. And I don't know that this O'Hare has walkable jetways. It really doesn't. Some of them do. Like I said, they're starting to get really nice jetways. But this is a nice pay-ware airport. And if you haven't had the opportunity to go and wander about in this airport, it's really kind of cool. So all of that looks good, and welcome to Chicago O'Hare. There's our counter, there was our gate, and there's our airplane as all the passengers get off the plane. How about that? And we're back where we started, right here in the waiting area. I hope that some of this helped out. I hope that this was a nice first look for you on this airplane. As I always like to say on these videos, this is never about the right way versus the wrong way. This is just what I have found that works out for me. We're going to be flying this pretty much for the rest of the week and on into the weekend over on Twitch. The spy flight departs at 1900 Zulu. That is 3 o'clock Eastern time during daylight savings time. You are always welcome to join us. The first flight is usually multiplayer. The next flights are going to be on VATSIM. So I definitely hope that you're able to come and join us and fly along. It's a really knowledgeable community. We've got some real world airline pilots that come in and say hi and help me learn even more about these absolutely amazing airplanes. And I gotta say, they really are pretty amazing airplanes. Popping out the window here. So everything's looking really good. If you liked what you saw, definitely want to say a big thank you to supporters on Ko-fi and Patreon. If you want to join those, it would certainly be appreciated. If you don't do those, come on over to Twitch. And if you feel like it, drop a sub there. And in the meantime, I'm going to say thank you so much for flying along with me today. I will see you again soon here on YouTube and even sooner on Twitch. As I always like to say, stay healthy, stay safe, and cheers.